Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, out in cinemas now, the new horror film. I went to see this movie for two reasons mainly. One, because it was advertised as being made by Guillermo del Toro, and that turned out to be a bit of a lie because he only gets the story by and producer credits, but didn't actually direct the film. And reason number two, because the movie appeared to be tapping into the same kid horror adventure style that Stranger Things and It had done so well. So the movie takes place in 1968 in a small town in America on Halloween and the next couple of days. We get introduced to this band of misfit kids who go into an abandoned house where the family of Bellows used to live. The legend goes that a girl named Sarah Bellows used to live there and was somehow responsible for the deaths of many children around town in some sort of supernatural fashion. So in the house, the kids find a book signed by Sarah, filled with all these short horror stories, and the main character Stella takes it home. And very soon, it becomes apparent that those stories, actually new ones, begin appearing in the book by themselves, and they begin to come true. And each time, something terrible happens to one of the kids in town. So the film is apparently based on a book by the same title, which was very popular in the US, as far as I know. I never read it, but I learned that it was much like the Sarah Bellows book in the film, in that it was an anthology of short stories with really creepy illustrations of the various terrible monsters that appear throughout. And the overarching plot with the kids and town was made up for the film. And I'm not sure if it wouldn't be better to keep the anthology style. I'm imagining something along the lines of The Ballad of Buster Scruggs that came out last year, but with horror instead of Western. And as it happens, we are left with a quite standard teenage adventure horror, and I'd say the proportions are exactly in that order: teenage adventure horror. The movie is clearly geared to a younger audience. I myself wasn't either blown away by the story nor creeped out by the horror elements, because the story is rather standard and unfortunately predictable, and the movie does rely a lot on jump scares to try and frighten the audience. It does also feature a couple of creepy monsters in it, and I have to say, I loved the design of those, but I do think they were kind of wasted and underused. Maybe not in terms of screen time, because there's plenty of them appearing, but for some reason, even when there's a sequence where a scary monster is chasing someone, I was never actually scared or terrified. There's a really distinct lack of tension, nothing truly gripping. And perhaps it has to do with the fact that each time someone dies, and believe me, there are deaths here, it's kind of quickly waved off. The remaining characters don't seem to dwell on that for too long. We're not left with this heavy sense that something meaningful happened. We just rush into the next step of the adventure. And as such, I found Scary Stories to be rather unengaging. Again, I think maybe a teenage audience would enjoy it more. For me, it was a rather plain and average film.